Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Taranae, and we have Mike and Justin here today to talk about charge pipes. We're happy to see a lot of new members here for our product education webinar. So there is still time if you want to forward this link to anyone in your organization to that they could still register. So thank you, everyone, for submitting your questions and attending today. I'll hand it over to Mike, and if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask in the Q&A section.
Thanks, Tierney. How's everybody doing today? Oh, yeah, see it. They didn't turn the mics on. Just kidding. Anyways, that's just to keep, we're on a short time gun. So anybody who has not joined us before in the webinar, again, welcome for joining us today. And for those who've been here before, it's about a 45 to 50-minute webinar that we actually kind of do a deep dive on AFE product. And if you have any questions or suggestions, like Tierney mentioned, feel free to chime in either in the chat or after this session. You can send us a message and we'll definitely follow up with you. So again, want to welcome all the new attendees today. Special shout out to Lordco up in Canada. They are our latest and newest WD warehouse distributor. Welcome, Lordco. Thanks for joining us today. And we got a couple questions for them about charge pipes. And with us today is Terry mentioned, is Justin Schultz. If you've been on our webinars before, you've seen his smiling face before. He's been with this company almost as long as the owners have, and it's 25 years. How long have you been here, Justin?
18 years now.
18 years. And
Yep.
Again, you started when you were like 12, 13 years old, right?
18 years old, yeah.
Elementary school. But Justin is been one of our lead engineers with our product groups, including intake systems, Gamma products, which are like some of our protection series products like BladeRunner Charge Pipes, as well as oil pans, diff covers. Justin's also got his hands on suspension, right, Justin?
Yep. Got the suspension, the sway-away shocks, and the level spacers, all that kind of stuff.
So literally a man of many hats. All right. Well, welcome, Justin. Thanks again for joining us today. So we got some good questions, and we're going to jump right in here. So as I mentioned, like some of the newer products that AFE has been coming out with since, oh gosh, at least 4, 5, 6 years, more than just filtration, more than intakes, more than just exhaust. Obviously, advanced flow engineering, which is AFE, really focused on getting more air in and more air out efficiently and effectively in most gas and diesel vehicles. However, the transition, the pivot point has always been on what else can AFE do to help improve a vehicle from the factory, which is pretty much aftermarket in a nutshell, right? Who wants to get a brand new truck, spend $75,000, $80,000 on it, take a perfectly good intake, trash it, and put an aftermarket intake unless you know it was going to improve the performance. So with that being said, again, one of the newest product categories in AFE's quiver has seen a tremendous amount of growth recently, and that is on the charge pipes, hot and cold charge pipes. For those of you who don't know, we'll cover that, what a charge pipe does and why it's there, but we'll also get into more about the BladeRunner AFE charge pipes. So, Justin, in a nutshell, what does a charge pipe do, and where can you find one? And you know, does my 4Runner have a charge pipe?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, charge pipes are really just a component on turbocharged engines. So your naturally aspirated 4Runner wouldn't have one, but it is responsible for carrying the air basically from the turbo through the intercooler and then back into the intake manifold. So it's usually a lot of the factory ones will be metal or plastic or rubber, but it's really just to carry that compressed air from the turbo back into the intake manifold.
So the pipes actually see temperature, extreme temperatures.
Yeah, they will. I mean, when you compress air, it'll heat up quite a bit, which is typically why they'll run it through an intercooler to help cool it back down before entering the engine. So yeah, they got to be able to withstand the temperatures of that hot air.
But they're also under a lot of pressure.
Correct. Yep.
And you
So,
mentioned some of the materials that the factory is offering. There's some that are steel, some that are rubber. Do they use silicone or Teflon or?
yeah, most of them would be like not usually silicone from the factory. It'd be more of a rubber, reinforced. Sometimes they'll have rings around them to keep them from swelling as much. But typically, if it's under 20 psi or so, it'll be plastic or rubber. And then if it's above that, a lot of the diesel trucks will have metal tubing, where they might see 30, almost 40 psi from a factory engine.
Okay, so most turbocharged engines, gas, diesel, will have the charge pipes. Some of them made out of these materials that you're mentioning. Now, what are some of the benefits of having the factory charge pipes on the vehicle?
I mean, the factory charge pipes are fine if you're not modifying anything else on the vehicle, as long as they don't fail on you. Once you start doing uh, modifications like intakes, exhaust, tunes, that kind of stuff, I mean, the next uh, smallest limiting factor would be the charge pipes, the intercooler, the rest of the passageways, transferring that air into the engine.
So which engines would most benefit from having an aftermarket charge pipe like the BladeRunner?
I mean, any of the diesel trucks, if you're using your truck for towing or racing, and you're already installing other modifications, charge pipes would be the next modification for that. A lot of new vehicles have either the plastic charge pipes or rubber charge pipes, like we've mentioned. Some of those are prone to failing, so replacing those would be, how they benefit is basically you're not putting the same thing that just failed back on the vehicle by buying a stock one again. You want to improve either by the quality of the material or by, if you're trying to improve performance, you want something that's a larger diameter, smoother transitions, um, and then obviously less weak points.
Yeah, definitely. So we're looking at a video clip here of an install. Which vehicle is this?
Those are the Toyota Tundra, the new 3.4 liter twin turbo. Those are the
Okay.
hot side charge pipes. So that one in particular doesn't have a cold side charge pipe because the intercooler is mounted on top of the engine. So
Okay.
these will basically go from each of the turbos into a single intercooler at the top, and then that just mounts directly to a throttle body and then dumps down into the intake manifold.
Okay. Yeah.
So,
Good deal. So you definitely have done your homework on which vehicles could benefit from aftermarket charge pipes. Um, Back to the diesel. Are you seeing anything drastically different on the later model diesel engines compared to, I don't know, 5, 10 years ago?
I mean, a lot of the newer, at least the Fords, are going to the air to water heat exchangers. So a lot of that lives more in the engine bay versus doing a front mount intercooler.
Hmm.
So just the routing of the tubes has changed a little bit. Some of them are putting more sensors on there. So instead of just maybe one temperature sensor before the air enters the engine, they're actually measuring before and after to check efficiency of the intercooler and everything. So maybe just more sensors, more ports, that kind of stuff on there.
More diagnostics for the ECU,
Yeah.
OBD. Wow. Yeah, I've noticed that. I mean, looking at some of the stuff that R&D's been working on lately, it kind of blows my mind. Like, I know a lot of manufacturers, vehicle manufacturers, are going to more efficient engines, smaller CIDs, smaller engines, smaller blocks, and using turbo, using hybrid or electric technology as kind of like a power adder.
Yep.
And it's working to some effect, but there's a lot more. I guess it's a give and take. So you're going to see a little bit of weakness on some end, but you're going to see some efficiencies on others. So they're really shooting for cost effectiveness, gas mileage, efficiencies, things like that. But there's again a give and take. And what we've been hearing on the tech side, on the retail side, in the factory store, been talking to the techs there, a lot of the newer, smaller turbo engines are coming with plastic charge pipes. And I guess this is what we're hearing is that they're failing. Some are cracking, they're leaking, they're not holding up. And these are stock vehicles. These are not tuned, purpose-built race vehicles. These are tow trucks or haulers, work trucks, everyday drivers. And what we're hearing is that the dealerships don't warranty these parts. They're claiming these are wear and tear parts. Have you heard any of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think outside of really the typical warranty period on these, they won't warranty them. They usually fail shortly after, like any other part on a car.
Yeah.
Seems to fail right after the warranty expires. But yeah, I mean, it is considered a wear and tear item, as you mentioned. So a lot of the times, if it does fail after 4 or 5 years, you're going to have to buy a new one. And on vehicles that have, common issues with failures, like the BMW M54, Colorado diesel, some of the Ford 6.7 Power Strokes, if you're not the only one that's having that fail, it's happening across the nation, and you can't even get a stock replacement. So, yeah, I mean, it's not just that it failed once. It's that you can't even buy another one, and if you can get it, do you want to install the same part that already failed? So,
And like I said, we get a small amount or a fair amount of calls from end users and from shops, and typically it's some of those engines you just mentioned, and they can't source the replacement parts out. The dealerships are back ordered on them, and obviously with changes afoot globally, things are probably going to make it a little more difficult to get some of these wear and tear parts. So again, not a fear factor thing, but it's more of an awareness thing. It sounds like the BladeRunner Charge Pipes initially were developed and designed for performance enhanced vehicles, but lately it's been more of a solution to a problem.
yeah.
So when we sent out the email invite to this webinar, we asked a quick couple of questions, and one of which was, what vehicles do you see the biggest demand for aftermarket charge pipes? And the obvious clear winner for us was the top 5 reasons to watch. Sports Central. Sorry, I got distracted. Squirrel. Anyways, so the number 1 was all turbo vehicles. That's a given because they require charge pipes, as Justin mentioned. Number 2 was Power Stroke engine. This Power Stroke diesel engine. Number 3 was GM. Very broad based, but we know specifically, we mentioned the 2.7, the Colorado, the half a max, if you will. The number 4 was BMW, the N54 turbocharged engines. Colorado Canyon, number 5, and of course, domestic diesel trucks. That is definitely something that we have coverage for. So, Justin, does this list in that order, does that surprise you, or is it kind of like what you expected?
No, I mean, that's pretty much what I would expect there. Yeah, I mean, the M54, I think there's a lot of different BMWs that they'll buy them for performance and stuff, but specifically on the M54, I know the stock one seems to be a point of failure. So that's probably why that's listed out, by name there. But yeah, I mean, all the diesel trucks are really our bread and butter. That's what we started with. With so many new cars being turbocharged nowadays, SUVs, all that stuff. I mean, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that the top choice here would be just all turbo cars.
Right.
It's hard to narrow it down nowadays.
Well, it's surprising. I was actually surprised about BMW. A lot of people I was not as aware of some of the people here today that the BMW that's kind of a weak link. Are these guys that are actually like tuning the vehicles? Like, are they trying to get more boost out of the turbo? Is that why maybe they're failing, or these are just stock?
We've seen it on both. It's happened with stock cars. I think part of it is the way that the tubes are routed on top of the engine. They're prone to heat soak. It's a plastic part. So just over time with the heat cycling like that, just becomes brittle and can start to fail. So that one in particular, at least for the M54, some of the other ones aren't mounted quite the same, or a little better quality. But that was really their first big turbocharged engine at straight six 3.0. So I'm sure they learned some since then. So.
Yeah, definitely. So are those stock pipes, are those plastic, or are they?
Yeah, the stock ones on the M54, I believe, are all plastic on that. That's a twin turbo design, so it's got two of them leading up to a single intercooler and then no cold side again.
So kind of, you touched on some of the vehicles we have, but we actually had one of the attendees throw out a question. We had Philip from Joseph's Auto Store. He asked which vehicles were the charge pipes available for. I know the list is probably longer than we have time for, but you want to go over some of the primaries?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much all the domestic diesel trucks we've got something for both hot side, cold side, combo. And then, yeah, we're expanding our lineup into all the new sport compact vehicles, as well as SUVs, gas trucks, and then also some foreign vehicles too. So,
I mean, you guys even have charge pipe for the KDM market, so
yeah.
you know, Kias, Hyundais, and they seem to be pretty popular.
Yeah, actually the Kia and the Hyundai, the Elantra and the Forte GT, that's one of our best-selling gas car charge pipes. So
it's good to know. Oh, there you go. All right. So quickly, can you walk us through a BladeRunner charge pipe? You know, like how it's designed, or and how it's manufactured.
yeah, I mean, pretty similar to our intakes and anything else. We'll bring a vehicle in, remove the stock charge pipes, take all our basic measurements, do some testing, see what the shortfalls are, see what size tubing would fit in the engine bay, what makes sense for replacement, and then yeah, we scan everything, do everything in CAD. So design everything up. Shoot out some LRAs over to our production team down the street. They'll make us some samples, and then we'll make some 3D printed fixtures to be able to, mark where to cut and do everything on the prototype before making, permanent fixtures. Tack weld, check everything in the vehicle, weld it up, leave it in a vehicle for testing, see if there's any changes we need to make that way for either fitment or performance improvements. And then from there, we'll make some fixtures and send it down the street to production and start running them. But yeah, I mean, we do everything in house, so the R&D time on this, it can be pretty quick. I mean, the only thing we really don't do in house would be those 5-ply silicone couplers. So if it's a new one, then we'll 3D print one for the testing phase just to make sure everything fits, at the same time that we're sending it out for production on that.
So, I mean, they look very similar to some of our exhaust components. Do we have that department kind of working on that part on the manufacturing side?
Or for production, we do. On manufacturing, yeah, it's really based out of the same department.
Okay.
We do have it separated. We have a cold team and a hot team over there. So charge pipes has become such a big part of our business lately that, yeah, we have our own welders. The only thing we really share is the benders. So, and then, yeah, laser etching and everything else, it's all shared.
And the material here, this is all aluminum or steel?
Yeah, these are all aluminum. We do have a couple older ones for some diesel trucks that are steel, but any of the new ones that we're doing are all aluminum on these.
Excellent. Do you know approximately like what percentage of sales versus capacity we're at right now with charge pipes as a product group at AFE?
Percentage of sales, charge pipes, I believe, is 5 to 10% of our business right now.
Wow.
And then for capacity, I mean, we need to hire more people. We're running out of welders. We're sharing the benders with some of the exhaust team, and header benders and that kind of stuff for the smaller size tubing. So I think, I don't know how many benders we have over there right now, but it's not enough.
Yeah. Well, it's a good problem to have, but
Yeah.
obviously we're scaling up, and it looks like we're kind of trying to stay in front of it before things get a little bit too backed up. I noticed that we have very good production planning. We look in our systems internally, and we look at ETAs. They've all got fair ETAs, 3 to 4 weeks out, some out to 5 weeks, depending on the intricacies of the part. I know some of them. Do some of these parts actually go on the robotic welder, or have anything that needs to be automated?
We don't on these, just because they're all aluminum and we don't have a spool gun set up on that one.
Okay.
So yeah, we try and keep the robot welder for all of our, tow hooks for the same vehicle here, the Tundra. We do strut braces on there, sway bars, anything else could be MIG welded essentially.
Hey, hold on a second. You're after my job. You're plugging the other product lines. That's my gig.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point. I mean, we have so much equipment in house, and our product lines keep expanding and growing exponentially. Um, the owners, upper management, they all have this one sight in mind, is like, let's try to break it. Let's try to break what we have and force the hand to go in and get more resources internally. Is there any plans on like outsourcing any of this stuff if had to be, or we want to keep this in house?
No, I think really we want to keep this in house. The whole reason we made the push on charge pipes was because it was a core competency for us as far as tube bending and manufacturing. So it is really something we want to try and keep in house and just expand on.
No, that makes sense. Definitely. So you kind of touched on some of the materials on the tube materials. I noticed there's different colors. I saw flashed by the screen there. Are these powder coated, finished, or satin coat, texture coat?
Yeah, all of the black ones are a black wrinkle powder coat, and then our red it's called a textured red. So they both have somewhat of a textured satin, a matte finish to it. There won't be a glossy finish on there. And then, as you can see, we have the laser etching on a lot of the new ones. The older ones had some badges, but we had some not necessarily quality issues. It was really, the process didn't suit itself to a charge pipe. That's something where you have to worry about leaking or finish and that kind of stuff. Welding a badge on an exhaust tubing is pretty easy, but when you have to send this out for powder coating, bring it back, try and clean off some spots to tack weld that badge on, and then the smoke from the badge or the powder coat burning can mess up the finish. It really didn't make sense. We were putting a lot of extra work in there, and
Mhm.
so a lot of the new ones here have the laser etched logo, which is what we were doing going forward.
Yeah, that looks pretty clean.
Yeah.
Plus, it's one less thing you gotta spot check when you pop your hood and you're doing your detailing. So that
Yeah,
looks.
rags not catching on it when you're wiping stuff down. Yeah.
It's the little things. That's
Yeah.
all that I see. And the badge looks great. It's a nice little emblem, but if it's going to cause you some issues down the road, I'm okay with that laser edge. Hey, so on some of the materials, like on the couplers, and we kind of touched before we started on the hardware, like the clamps. What can you tell us about the other accoutrements that come with the charge pipes?
Yeah. So a lot of the diesel trucks will still have the spring-loaded T-bolt clamps in there. We've been moving to stainless steel smart seal clamps for a lot of the newer gas truck stuff and cars. They're easier to install. Customer can't over torque it, which is good. They actually have a plate on the inside that's got some curves up. So as you do tighten it down, it doesn't cut into the silicone at all. So, we're trying to minimize any future potential failure points on that as the coupler expands and contracts, under boost. It's not going to wear against an edge. So those silicone couplers are good and they're reinforced, but they can, over time, if they swell at all or move against a sharp metal edge, that's where we've seen failures in the past, which is why we're moving to smart seal clamps.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. You don't want to cut the surface of the material because that will be the weak link down the road.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of thought put into that. So what's in the box? Like when you get a charge pipe from AFE, when the shops get it, when the customer gets it, what's all included?
Yeah, I mean, really everything you need for the install. The tubing will be in there, any hardware required, couplers, clamps, instruction sheet, printed out. Yeah, everything that you need is in there, all the O-rings. There's a couple parts that will get transferred over from OE components onto the charge pipe. In this case, it would be like the clip for the quick connect adapters, any sensors, anything like that will just transfer over, but all the hardware to do it is included.
So one thing I didn't touch on is that earlier Tierney had like a slide of a kind of a stock charge pipe versus ours. Are
Yep.
the AFE BladeRunner charge pipes, are they the same diameter stock, or there's a benefit here other than it being more durable?
Yeah, I mean, typically we'll go larger than the stock was on those. In some cases where, we have two different diameters, maybe one section might be similar to stock, but if the stock one was a rubber component and now we're going to an aluminum component, that rubber tube could swell and it won't help keep the pressures up on the air there. So having the aluminum versus the rubber, even though it's the same size, you're able to keep those pressures up on the aluminum with the BladeRunner one. So.
And obviously the larger diameters for more frequent airflow, constant airflow.
Yeah.
And maintaining pressures.
More volume through there. Yeah.
More volume, more air, a little bit more power, or quicker spool. What's the performance benefit here on the charge pipes?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just it's more volume. If you open up that intake and exhaust and everything else, and that turbo is breathing freely out of both sides here, it's still got to try and compress all this and push all that air through, smaller diameter tubes or tubes with non-uniform cross sections, which, all of our Mandrel-bent tubing will have a consistent cross section as it flows through. A lot of the stock plastic ones will be deformed or, smashed in certain areas. A lot of that's because they'll install those onto the engine, and then during the assembly, they'll lower the cab onto it or put the motor in, as one unit, and that tube's got to clear during that install. So they're not usually optimized for flow per se. They're more optimized for the process. So yeah, having, now that engine's installed and you got plenty of room on the top, we can go with a larger cross section and, maybe do a little bit different routing path or however we want to do it to maximize that flow profile through there.
So it's kind of a balancing act. You have to make it easy to install, easy to access, or easier, but you also have to bake in some different size, a larger diameter tube, as well as have it more durable. So you got to check all the boxes, not just swapping it out to get a cool looking AFE logo badge on there.
Yeah, and there is a point where you can go too large on the tube, and the turbo's got to work so hard. It moves volume, but it can't build pressure, which won't help the engine either. So
you got to make sure you get that happy medium on all. So it looks like everything is in the box that you need to install. And we have Ashley from Alliance Sales. Welcome, Ash. Asked us about installation. Like, how difficult would it be to install? We saw a little bit of the video before Tierney was playing. We got a couple of videos actually up on our YouTube channel. So if anybody really wanted to fact check us on some of these installation, that's where you'd want to go. So how difficult or easy are these to install?
Yeah, I would say, especially this Tacoma video that she's got here, this one's real easy. Everything just unclips with, it's factory rubber hoses, 2 clips on each end. They just pop out. You do have to remove the intake tube. That's pretty much the extent of the the work. So that one you could be done, even if you've never done it before, you could have that thing installed in, probably 30 minutes if you really had everything laid out, ready to go. Um, Pretty simple one there. Some of them could take, up to 60 minutes, an hour and a half or whatever. Um, some of them like a Veloster N, the easiest way we've found to do it is really drop the front subframe down slightly to be able to get access to the back of the engine. That one you could spend 4 hours on it, and then have to go worry about alignment and everything else afterwards. So yeah, it really depends on the engine bay, the layout of the stock configurations, and then yeah, I mean, what else you're installing at the same time, possibly. So.
Okay. So I'm just looking at this Tundra video real quick, or the Tacoma video. The stock charge pipes, those are rubber?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why it looked like it was pretty easy for him, just pop them right off, and now he's just sub-assembling the AFE BladeRunner charge pipe, dropping it down in there. He's got the big watch. Apparently that's not in the way. So it looks like you guys have, again, done your homework on making it kind of simple. So this would be a really good one for a shop to start with. Maybe get a Tacoma in the shop, do that install, and then kind of work their way up to the more challenging ones. I'm sure the diesel ones are pretty difficult.
Yeah, some of them can be. I think some of the F-150s can be a little more difficult, when you've got different things overlapping. You might have to remove a few more components before you can even access the charge pipes. A lot of the F-150s, you got to go through the fender well on each side, so you might have to, pull some tires off to get some clearance there. So yeah, it really depends on the vehicle.
So are they to me, looking at this video, they are kind of designed for the DIYer as well, right?
Yeah, we try and develop everything for the DIYer. Simple tools at home, make sure that you can do it, laying on your back under the car in the garage. Um, no real specialty tools required for any of the installs that we've done. And then, we include a complete guide with all the pictures and, go online too and pull it up and look at all the colored pictures, zoom in, read step by step. Some of them have videos as well for a lot of the new ones. So yeah, it's really designed for the DIYer.
But if you're a shop, which we have a lot of folks online right now that might be interested in knowing, what are some of the features and benefits of the BladeRunner charge pipes that the shops and the jobbers, and whether they're selling it to their customer or they actually give them a choice, show them a video. Here, qualify the customer. Is this something you can do? They probably could, but they rather not. How much does the shop want to charge? So what are some of the things that the shop should be aware of?
Yeah, I mean, this one here with the Bronco, depending on other modifications, if a shop's going to do something like this and they've got an aftermarket skid plate or anything else, there's a lot of things that might have to come off in order to do the install.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing if you are selling them a set of charge pipes, if that's their first modification, if they're already buying an intake or something else and they think, oh, I might do the charge pipes later,
Mm-hmm.
something like this install for the customer might be a little cheaper. For the shop, it's going to be, get the vehicle in once, but really you have to pull the whole intake out to be able to install these charge pipes. So doing the install of both products at the same time makes a lot of sense. You'll be removing everything and then install some charge pipes, install the intake, and then install the other charge pipe. They're all kind of overlapping on this one. So certain vehicles, it makes sense to try and bundle the intake and the charge pipes together for an install time. So
So
if somebody is leaning that way.
so not exactly. Well, yeah, I guess typically it would be an upsell, but
Yeah,
it's the benefit of both. The shop is, since they're going to be in there doing the intake swap, they got to remove it. This is the best time to do the charge pipe simultaneously, and obviously they can add a little bit more labor. But if the customer is not willing to do it at the same time, they might charge them a little bit more when they come back. So
correct. Yeah.
good to know. So on the Bronco, did you guys see a pretty good difference or gain?
We did, and we actually have quite a few dynos that we did on the Bronco. That was one of the vehicles that we purchased ourselves, so we've got our own in-house 2.7.
Mhm.
The best gains that we've seen were with the intake, exhaust, tuner, everything, because the charge pipes really are more of a supporting part that on their own, they don't really add a lot because, if you're using the stock intake, stock exhaust, opening up the middle section and not the inlet and the outlet really doesn't add much. But yeah, having intake, tune, exhaust, and then with and without the charge pipes, we actually noticed quite a bit of a difference on that one. I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but yeah.
Yeah, I looked at them just before we started, and I was kind of impressed. I didn't think they would make that much of a difference, but as you mentioned, if you've got other modifications, they are a supporting component.
Yeah.
Definitely, because obviously the motor's spooling up a little bit quicker, you're getting a little bit more boost, you're getting a little bit more fuel. You mentioned tune. Is that with like a tuned engine, or is that with the Scorcher or a plug and play module, or?
Yeah, I mean, really, it could be either. On ours, we're using our Scorcher module on that, which is a plug and play piggyback module um, to help with the fueling and the boost and all that stuff. So, yeah, that's where we noticed the biggest difference. We didn't run them on our own vehicle with any kind of full custom engine tune or anything like that. It's all just plug and play stuff. So.
That was kind of, I was leading into that one question, like once you install these, do you need to have a tune? Do you need to have modifications done to the vehicle prior to, or
No, I
apparently?
mean, you can install any of the charge pipes by themselves without any tune, any other supporting products, especially if they're trying to replace a part that's broken or something like that.
Mhm.
Installing them by themselves, you're not going to lose anything. It might not show the best power gains. Some will show some power gains, but really it is a supporting product. So where you'll notice it the most is after you've already installed intake, exhaust, tuner, even intercooler in some cases.
Okay.
Um,
No, that makes sense.
yeah.
And Tierney's got up the flow chart real quick. Looks like the hot side compared to stock is flowing about 9% more, and it looks like the cold side is flowing almost 70% more CFM.
Yeah. And that is, which application is she showing here?
That's the 46 to, is it the Bronco?
Oh, the Bronco. Okay, yeah, for the 2.3.
Oh, the
Yeah.
2.3. Okay. So it's there's a benefit either way, whether you have mods, whether you're stock, but sounds more like preventative maintenance in a nutshell. And looking at, I mean, if as a shop, as a dealer, customers asking what's important about the charge pipes. Well, I mean, if there's a failure out there in the marketplace on the factory part, you're doing a little preventive maintenance. It's a little cheap insurance. I mean, these parts are $300 to $500 a set. I mean, they go up from there, but starting point is pretty reasonable, I think, for especially if it's something that you're doing to prevent something bad from happening. That only makes sense, right?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the cost, going into these is those machined aluminum components. A lot of the new vehicles, instead of just a coupler going onto an intercooler, they've either got these quick connect fittings, a lot of billet pads for different sensors and crankcase ventilation lines, the recirculation valves, all that kind of stuff. So that, yeah, I mean, the more complex the charge pipe, the more expensive it's going to get. And
Sure.
that's not really driven off of us, really. That's more driven off of the replacement that we're doing on the vehicle. So
Yes. And that being said, it sounds like you're replicating everything that the manufacturer has baked into the stock part, stock charge pipe. Does it void the BladeRunner charge pipes? Does it void the warranty?
not just installing them by themselves won't void any warranty directly. I mean, obviously, in the event of your car having an issue and you having to take it into the dealer would have to prove that that part caused that issue
Mhm.
before they could try to even void any warranty. Uh, Obviously, if you're going to take a car into the dealer like that Typically, you'll put stock parts back on it if you got it before taking it in, just to avoid any of that. But if you did take it in and it was towed in or whatever, you didn't have an option to try and pull those off, or you threw your stock parts away. Really, I mean, they can't void the warranty just because the parts are installed. So
Yeah, we've heard stories of folks taking long trips, hauling, taking the family out summer vacation, especially during heated days, summer days last year, and we've had oh, I broke down the side of the road and I had some duct tape and they had a plastic charge pipe crack and they were having to pull over every so many miles just to get from one town to the next. And once they got to O'Reilly's AutoZone, we had them call us up and say, do you have this charge pipe in stock? Yeah, we do, but it's going to take a little bit longer to get there. So luckily they found a rubber hose to kind of rig it, fix it, get them to the next bigger town, and the next town over. I believe they had it shipped to the next AutoZone, if I'm not mistaken, and they were able to do the install. And that at least it took them a couple extra days out on the road, but it definitely got them where they wanted it to go. So we've got a couple of other quick questions before we wrap up here. We're kind of running out of time, but I always run late. That's okay. It's not. We got nothing better to do all day. Just kidding. Charge pipes. We kind of touched on this a little bit. So the factory charge pipes are not covered under warranty. They're considered a wear and tear part.
yeah, I mean, it really depends. If the car's brand new and something fails, it could be covered under the initial warranty. You know, some of those cars, it's 2 to 3 years, but um, a lot of the OEMs still, like if it's a common issue of failure, you could take your vehicle into the dealer and even they won't be able to get a stock replacement part for you, even if you could spend the $300 or something to get one, or if it's under warranty. So yeah, I mean, really, if the stock part has already failed, it's really that's a good sign. You don't want to replace it with the same thing. You want to try and upgrade it either by a higher quality part, something that's not plastic or rubber like that that's going to fail again, or with a performance part. So
Yeah, good point. What is the warranty on the BladeRunner charge pipes?
our charge pipes have a 2-year warranty on the components themselves, and then the finish is a 90-day. If there's any obvious manufacturer defects or anything, we'll take care of you. And then, yeah, we do sell a lot of the components. So if you're outside that warranty and something does happen, we sell a lot of the couplers and clamps and anything like that. If somebody does need to replace just one component.
Yeah. And the seals that are included on there, the O-rings, what material is that?
A lot of the O-rings that we have, depending on where the connection point is, it'll either be a Buna or a Viton. If it's connected directly to the turbo and it's on the hot side, a lot of the times we'll use the Viton for the temperature resistance. And then if it's on the intercooler or on a plastic mating part, we'll use a Buna.
All right, so we're using better than factory or equivalent to factory components. Jumping back to again, shout out to Lordco. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, we see you in the future on more of these webinars. But we had a question from Jeff at Lordco. Ask what about the sensor functionality and emissions compliance? You kind of covered that a little bit, but you want to recap?
Yeah, I mean, all of our charge pipes are really designed to work with the factory sensors, and a lot of them even add extra ports. So we'll have 1/8-inch MPT ports on there if you wanted to add separate monitoring yourself, or water methanol injection, anything like that, depending on the vehicle and what your goals are there. But yeah, you can connect those secondary sensors up to like an AGD display or some other way of monitoring. And then as far as the emissions compliance, we've really been trying to push for CARB approval on a lot of these. Some of them take a little longer than others, and it really depends on, if when we go to apply for the CARB approval, whether they make us bring in certain vehicles, we got to track down that vehicle, install the parts, send them in, do all that stuff. That takes a little longer. And then just the way CARB broke up the emissions group testing recently. Now when we could have sent in, 5 or 6 applications on one submittal, now we got to break that into, individual submittals for all of them because they're either a different group or different, something. So.
Right. Definitely slowing the train down. We got a couple more quick questions for you, Justin. We had Nick jump in, and he had a question about do we notice any heat soak issues going from a plastic charge pipe to aluminum?
Not typically. It is a pretty thin wall. It's not going to hold a lot of heat itself, so that it'll cool down pretty quickly. I mean, you got all the air flowing through it. So yeah, we haven't really noticed any real heat soak issues on that. Obviously, if it was a thicker wall, something like that, where it'll retain the heat, that's where you'll notice it. But it is a pretty thin wall too. So.
Cool. Okay, great question, Nick. Thank you. And any other tips or tricks that you want to share about the charge pipes, maybe for an installer or for a DIYer?
Yeah, I mean, I would say probably top 5 tricks we have. Grease the O-rings if there's any O-rings going in there to prevent any tearing or rolling during the install, just so you don't have to spend all the time putting it on there, find out it's leaking, and then have to pull it off again. Clean off any oil residue or anything off any mating faces where the couplers will connect to. Yeah, I think the biggest thing we've seen after somebody installs a set of charge pipes is, they go drive around and the boost tube pops off and they're like, oh, did I not tighten the clamp enough? Or was it, really it comes down to cleaning any of that oil residue off, making sure it's, dried, the coupler's clean, reinstall it. The next tip would be really just place that clamp directly behind any kind of bead that's there. So that'll help prevent it from sliding off. If the clamp's too far away from where the bead is, sometimes it'll slip a little bit and then kind of stop. So you'll notice, oh, it looks like it's pulling back a little bit, and they'll try and move the clamp the other way. It's really, you want to move the clamp as close to that bead as possible. Or if in the case of an internal bead, you want to put that clamp directly over that internal bead. So just the placement of the clamps, and then don't over tighten the clamps, and don't tighten the clamps while you're installing it. Leave everything loose until everything's completely installed, just to make sure that it's not contacting anywhere and you can kind of move stuff around, then tighten everything up. And then something a lot of people probably don't do, it's on our instructions, but after you've driven around with it for 50 to 100 miles, really bring it back in and check everything, tighten it back down again if needed. Keep an eye on it, make sure nothing slipped. A lot of the times you can catch stuff right away before driving around for, ever, and then it pops off. You'll notice that it was slipping before and you could have tightened that clamp, or maybe go back in and clean it up a little bit. So.
Yeah, I like 4 and 5. I would probably put that 1 and 2. Don't over tighten, because if you over tighten, you can bend the tube, which could cause leakage later. And then number 2 is retightening, obviously. Everything, especially anything new, even we say this on our intake install instructions, make sure you go back and retighten everything after a couple hundred miles. So those are good points. Thanks, Justin. Appreciate that. And lastly, anything new on the horizon? You got working on any new related products or applications for the BladeRunner Charge Pipe?
Yeah, I've got quite a few in the works right now. I'm trying to get the Bronco Raptor and Ranger Raptor too. It fits the same application. Trying to get that one out the door this week. And then we've got the new F-150 2.7 liter EcoBoost in the works. The cold side charge pipe for the LMM LBZ.
Wow.
Got Jeep JL 2.0 for the 24 and up. So it's real similar to the previous generation. It just doesn't have a recirculation valve on it. We got the new Colorado Canyon, the 2.7 turbo engine. So that one's coming out pretty soon. And then I'm actually working on one more that's kind of a problem solver, not necessarily a performance part, but it'll be more of our OE replacement style charge pipe for the Colorado Canyon with the 2.8 diesel. We've had a lot of issues with, people calling in and saying, hey, I don't really want a performance part. I just want to replace my broken stock part. Do you have anything that I can just replace this broken stock part? I can't get the OE replacement, So we really, went back to the books and thought, what else can we do with, the material and quality and everything that we do here? So the OE series is going to be really a 304 stainless tubing with silicone couplers still, but it's really going to mimic the stock path of the stock charge pipe, where sometimes we will change the routing of the tube because we're doing a larger diameter. On these OE ones, we're really trying to keep the stock diameter. We don't add a lot of extra ports. It actually uses the same, basically a replacement stock coupler. So if you wanted to use your stock couplers and upgrade the pipe, you could. Or if you wanted, replace just the couplers, we'll offer the couplers by themselves for your stock tubing. Or you buy the complete OE replacement, which will be all the couplers, all the stainless tubing, everything, all the way to replace your complete stock charge pipe. And those are more going to be for the problem solvers, like maybe the M54, but that one will probably be a performance part. This Colorado, some of the Ford Super Duties, some that are more prone to failure. So that'll be coming out soon.
So the OER charge pipe, the first one you're coming out with is for the Colorado?
Correct. Yeah, Colorado diesel.
Diesel. Okay, so that one comes with a plastic charge pipe?
Yeah, the cold side is plastic, and then they have some sensors and stuff, like pads for sensors sonically welded to them.
Oh, wow.
That seems to be the biggest point of failure, is around that sonically welded area will tend to crack. And that's on the plastic, so you pretty much got to replace the entire unit at that point. In the event that's good, but your coupler fails, we'll have the coupler replacements as well. So
how soon do you think these parts will be released?
Couplers are here already. Just turned in all those fixtures to production. So yeah, we're really trying to push and get these out in the next 4 weeks or so.
Oh, wow. That quick. Okay. So new OER charge pipes for the Colorado coming up first. And it looks like there's going to be a new line of charge pipes aside from the BladeRunner. These will be known as the OER.
Yeah, we're right now kind of in line with our radiators and our filters, drop-in replacement filters, that OE replacement style product, where it is an improvement in quality, maybe not performance the way we typically think of performance, as gaining horsepower and that kind of thing, but it's really a quality improvement. Your higher quality silicone couplers, stainless tubing, a lot of the parts, that fail on the factory ones are either plastic or rubber. So we're improving the quality where we can on those.
Great. Well, Justin, I hate to cut you short, but man, I could definitely go on and on about some of these other products, but we're out of time. We're a little bit running late. So just wanted to say thank you very much for the time and the input and fielding some of these questions. Want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, if you're first time, welcome, and hope to see you back soon. We try to generally get 2 of these in a month. Just keep your eye on your email boxes, and definitely share and forward the links to get more folks in your team members that might be interested in a little bit more of an AFE product. Also, if you have any questions about what we talked about today or any of AFE product, obviously you can go to afepower.com. Check out the website. We've got a lot of interesting information on there. We got blog posts, more detailed information on products, of course, YouTube channel for any of the installation videos. And real quick plug, our next consumer event we're going to be out is Overland Expo West. It's going to be May 16th, 18th in Flagstaff, Arizona. And of course, we'll be showcasing a lot of our Overland products as well as our traditional products, intakes, exhaust, including charge pipes. And that's going to be booth 40, P40. That's near the Navajo Ramada section at Fort Tuttle County Park, Flagstaff, Arizona, May 16th, 18th. Tierney, what do you got for housekeeping?
Yeah, so thank you everyone for attending this webinar. You will receive an email with the recording sent to your email after this. So feel free to share with your coworkers, anyone else at your organization. These videos are really awesome to listen to afterwards. It's great to see it live, but afterwards it's kind of like listening to a podcast. You know, you could listen to it while you work and get educated. If you have any questions, please, you could reply to the email or contact your representative at AFE Power if you would like to place an order or learn more about the charge pipes. And also, we will be posting this on our dealer resource page. So I will send a link in the chat as well as send an email out to everyone. So thank you everyone for joining. And if you have any other ideas for future future webinars, just let us know. We're open to ideas, anything you see that there's a demand for, anything that you guys are seeing on the ground to your customers. We'd love to hear it. So please, you could always reply to the email that you see on our webinar invites. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Tierney. Thanks, Justin. And thanks, everybody, for joining us today. You guys have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.